Welcome to the Madison Advisory AI Podcast. I'm your host, Verner Thompson. After nearly 20 years as a healthcare investment banker, I saw the same patterns across organizations of all sizes and industries. A lot of excitement about AI and digital transformation, but far less clarity around how to actually implement it in a way that helps people do their work better. This podcast is where I sit down with thoughtful leaders to talk about how technology and AI intersect with real operations, real teams, and real human behavior, beyond the hype and buzzwords. Today, I'm joined by Teresa Eng, a business and technology leader with more than 25 years of experience spanning product development, high tech, and financial services. Teresa currently leads technology and operations at Commercial One Insurance, a 30-person company in the commercial trucking space, where she's navigating modernization, AI adoption, and cultural change all at the same time. What I find especially compelling about Teresa's approach is her emphasis on empathy as a leadership tool, and her belief that while technology constantly evolves, culture and human behavior are what ultimately determines whether that change does stick. Teresa, thank you so much for joining me today. To start
I
us
think
off, hi. When people ask you what you do, how do you explain your role and the problem that you're really trying to solve?
I think it's interesting. Title is no longer relevant. I mean, in the last decade or so, I think I would best describe myself as more of a hybrid human capacity. I've been in the corporate world for more than 35 years, wearing both the business and technology hat. And I would say you would imagine someone that is a little worker bee or widget that connects all the dots together. So my formal title is technical program manager. So that kind of sort of reflecting I stand inside TPMO, but my capacity of responsibility is really um, facilitate and collaborate cross-functionally. So I think this role was first introduced as a business analyst, I would say 20 years ago. There's really no such role as business analyst. I think back then they realized the criticality and importance of someone that had the right business acumen for IT implementation. So more of a partnership, hence they create this hybrid role. So I've been on this role or at this role for, almost 35 years now. So that's how I describe myself. It's more of a hybrid business and technology, human
And
capacity.
one phrase you just said that really stood out to me was that you had the right business acumen for technology and implementation. And during our conversations, that stood out to me too in your leadership style. How would you describe the right business acumen for such a what can be described as a difficult role in the technology space?
Oh, absolutely. I think technology is probably 10-20% of the ingredients, really, if you consider that as a whole ecosystem. First and foremost, you have to understand what problem you're trying to solve and who are behind those people, system, and process that's kind of driving it really. So I think through the conversation and through truly an understanding and put yourself in their shoes and really ask the right questions to what kind of prioritize and boil down to the top, perhaps top five key ingredients that I attributed to the most pain points. So in order to do so, you have to understand the operation, the business model, the strategy, really I would say the 50,000 foot level and all the way down to the ground level. And that's why having the right business acumen and the right time to ask the right question is super important. So that skill is, I think it's you cannot really master it. It's a forever learning. So even with my background, 30 plus years of experience, I'm still learning. I think you have an excellent opening. AI has been sprinkled throughout, everyone's daily life, professional and personally. So the learning is a bit more complicated now because you have to create or think of your use cases, how technology can enable you. But first and foremost, you got to have to start with the problem or what problem you're trying to solve and map that back into the process, system, and people.
Right. And so it really sounds like your approach and the way that has been successful over the years is not taking it only from the 50,000-foot level or even the 20,000-foot level, but understanding every single layer that's fitting into the system.
Absolutely.
When you first took on your role here, what was the first problem you really noticed, or what did you need to solve?
Sure. So I would probably relate the most recent experience and really the lessons learned through the course of my career. When I first joined 5 years ago with Commercial One, I think the most important roadmap or really the problem we're trying to solve or the person had in mind as the strategy or strategic goal for that year was hiring people, putting warm body on the seat is not the way to solve for handling volumes and the spikes and etc. So I think the manual work kind of helped me create and roadmap. So my first priority or my first roadmap item is really to identify all the different connectors and help them come up with that digital transformation roadmap. Everything's done pretty manually, given that the company has grown tremendously, and I think the growth had really, in just a lot of the hype and having a human capital doing things right, just repeating and more maintaining routine. And having the technology help them to automate to streamline is really probably their low hanging fruit, if you will. So when I was brought into the TPMO position, and my first priority is to really look at the cross-functional team and look at the whole day-to-day where they spend the most time. So what I have done as my foundational homework for the first 3 months was to really map out the whole ecosystem, starting with the architecture diagram, right? Identify all the data sources or source systems, if you will, and all the processes around that, and ultimately where's the data flowing, right? The end goal is to really create a meaningful dashboard to help decision. So the whole entire ecosystem map from architecture, the system to the process to really the different data marts and subject areas. So once I had that foundational roadmap, then I would determine, okay, where would be the best place to put in the ERP, a system that would help
Right.
store the system of records of everything, the client, the policy, the claims, etc. So from there, I would embark on the software discovery journey, and based on the needs, based on the volume, based on the key pain points, what are some of the good softwares out there that would help us solve some of the key problems, right? It's sort of a matching game. So I found really the fireside chat, the different webinars, and also conferences. I know everyone goes to conferences for the swags. And on top of it, it's really talking to people and trying to understand why they develop certain platform and what problems they're trying to solve, and really looking at the whole scalability of the system. My understanding is we're a small company, and the challenge I had back then was a lot of the system is built for a large size company or a startup, but nothing in between. So, it took me some time to really understand using a lot of I would say, the pros and cons comparison. I think there are a lot of tools I use to help me come up with maybe the top three. And based on the use cases I saw, so then I started the discovery journey on really vetting through the different platforms. I think I had the final two. And through the course, I think someone or whoever is managing the project, the most important thing, if you are very lean in the team, is to really try to create a business ERD, right, for each of the functional area. So kind of spread out your different ingredients and put them together. So at that time, that was my day zero. If you understand
Right.
the work breakdown structure, day zero took a long time for me to document my requirement, because a lot of times when I conduct a demo, technical demo with the vendor, they would ask, okay, tell me your day to day. What does it look like? So in order for me to articulate correctly with the right intensity, I need to understand really the granular detail of how everything flows. And in between, I would really anchor down the pain points or the tasks that would take the most, the redundancy, etc. So that was my approach coming from the product development and technical background. And the first year is completely vetted and used as sort of a discovery. And the year one, I was able to locate or at least found the right solution for two
Right.
SaaS platforms I implemented. One is the system of record for our policies, and the other SaaS platform is a bit robust. I would see that platform as more of a horizontal, supporting our day-to-day operation from client intake onboarding all the way to claims process management. So two
And
SaaS.
so great. And then how, when you say you really did validate that within a year that it was the appropriate and correct software solution, how did you validate that?
Really good question, right? Since it's a very lean team, it's by myself. So I did have a little luxury of spending really in-depth time to understand. So I would ask, from really going back to the upstream, the very first task we start, the client intake from prospect to client to quote conversion. Every single task I kind of modularize the process. So each module has a set of tasks. Each task has a set of subtasks, and subtasks refer to maybe document validation or online validation. You run a report or loss run, etc. Within the module, you have a task that sort of a set of tasks and subtasks. So that's why it took so long to really create that whole requirement roadmap, because then you would be able to cross-reference to where are the dependencies, where are your sort of the deficiencies. um, I would say the investment of creating these detailed document, business requirement, the spec, the workflow, the architecture context diagram is really worth every penny and every second of my time. And I wish I had more people to help me, but the luxury or the upside is I would see things firsthand. And I think with my background, very thankfully, I would be able to articulate between tasks and come up with the right questions to ask and really boil down to if you want to change one thing, what would that be? So I was able to really depict certain things. And the end deliverable was really a comprehensive sort of a project documentation space, and I can
Okay.
reference everything if you pinpoint, okay, how do you improve, from prospecting, pre-vetting to getting a quote, a proper quote, right? So I was able to articulate the whole process. And if there's certain ways I can digitize the data flow, I would be able to because I was there as part of the conversation.
And being such a hands-on component leader and developer throughout this process, what really surprised you the most?
Okay, so I think culture, first and foremost, is something that I try to assimilate to understand because system and technology is really a very small part of the component. Even if you want to do cultural transformation, digital transformation, I think, knowing people and having the right soft skills really give me a good lead into really having the right tone to talk to people. I think when folks understand you're there to change their daily lives or the routine and behavior, the first thing they do is like the walls out.
Stuff. Yeah.
Things are working. Why are you here to change things? So I think to break down the wall, you need to understand the opportunity cost of their time. So let's say if something would require you to spend an hour to accomplish, and I would say the cost benefit of analysis, if you can spend 10 minutes doing the same thing rather than an hour, you have 15 minutes. And if you have that incremental free up 15 minutes, you can learn new skills. You can upsell, cross sell, and get into the client relationship. So there's a lot more you can do with that opportunity cost. So the selling point is, if you were to do the same thing, you can save, 70% of the time. Would you have
Right.
time to entertain the idea or have a little working session, kicking some tires with me? Understand the culture, understand the people, especially company been around for so long. This is our 26th year in operation, and a lot of the folks are very senior. They have, more than 15 years with the company. So they created the whole foundation. Who we are today is because of their time and effort and investment. So I totally respect that. So respecting the people, using your soft skill to navigate around the whole ecosystem between people and trying to find the right catalyst to talk to. People are willing to think outside the box, are willing to change. I see them as more of a catalyst change agent. So
Right.
the most important, to coming back to your question, is understand the culture and see where people, why are they so reluctant to change, right? So I think it's interesting, after all those working sessions with more than 10 people for my requirement working sessions, one commonality I found was they would not give up using Excel.
Oh, Excel.
So the commonality of, like, what if you were, if you need to change one thing, what would that be? And if you want, retain certain, tool and skill set and to help facilitate your day-to-day tasks, and as a sort of the fixed foundation, what would that be? I would imagine them to say something that they're super comfortable, their comfort zone, and like everyone else, Excel. They want, if you want to change platform or implement different integration or different system entry or processes, I would like ultimately be able to download things and I can analyze this.
I can completely relate to that as an investment banker. I don't know what I would do without Excel, so I hear you on that front and your company
Exactly.
employees.
Yeah, and Excel, you can actually do a lot of things with, the Visual Basics coding, a lot more add-on templates. There's so much more you can do with Excel. So I would really, feed in that thought process and say, what could Excel do interfacing with everything else I'm trying to implement, right? So Excel interface, it is so easy to invest and evaluate and implement. So I think that is probably the number one thing as sort of a takeaway, as if you were to change one thing, what would that be? And if you want to keep something, hold on to something that you're willing to work with and continue to better yourself. And they said Excel, so that was pretty easy for me
Yeah.
to comprehend, because I'm amongst the same people. I love Excel, right? And that, to me, it's sort of something that I would fall back easily, comfortably to maintain my efficiency.
And I think change that you really captured there, change is difficult on a human level, on a company level. It's really something that you have to translate in the right fashion. And it seems like you did in terms of your catalysts and you knew who to communicate with. Do you think that the change really did impact the end user and the ability that fa- using technology in a more efficient manner can enable us to communicate to clients, communicate to others in a more intelligent manner, in a more empathetic manner because we have additional time with our resources?
Right, right. Very fair question. It's a really important retrospective evaluation that you have to keep on your run book, really, and that will go on for some time. It did take me, I would say, a good 3 to 6 months to sense if people are adopting the technology and new processes
Mhm.
comfortably. I have, I think every other week, I have a standing meeting to meet with the folks and say what's working, what's not. Do you need more training in certain aspect? And I have people help me document. I think it's hard for me to ask them to spend time documenting certain things. So, I created a Google spreadsheet, or, anytime when they have some thought, jotting down, forward it to me so I can really put, sort of keep a tab on the inventory on things that they like to improve on, things that are working well. And the habitual, when you do daily entry, when you are getting used so much on doing the same thing for the last 20 something years, that on and off switch would take a while for them to get used to. So I have to make sure I allow them enough time and give them enough support. If it's not from myself, it will be from the vendor or the training team, to give them support to really get over that hump. Say, oh gosh, I have to go through 3 clicks to get to one form. I have to drill down. There's so much to learn. And so that sort of a transition period took me a little bit, but I have help from the vendor
Right.
And the catalyst, the folks that are more interested in technology, they are more forward thinking, and they would take on really the problem issue log and Q&A, things like that. And then we will meet with them every other week to really try to solve them and try to facilitate and answer questions as to, I think there are a lot of great areas people are still trying to explore. So that transition, exploration, adoption period took a while. I would say if you were to put a timeline to it, depending on how, what are some of your users' acumen? Are they, proponent for technology and improvement? Then you have a shorter time span to, complete your phase one, if you will, right after the implementation go live. So after the day one implementation, I kind of carve out different timeline, phase one, phase two, phase three. And this is our fourth year with the two platforms live now. We've done so many different enhancements, and I think the initial 3 to 6 months adoption and learning curve, once when that's passed, and the users, that's actually most of the users, could understand why we transitioned to a digital platform, and slowly they pivot their skill set into manual thinking, into oh, wait a minute, if I am waiting for a loss run to come back, I can do certain things, and this path dashboard will help me prioritize my stuff. So I think it's the correlation of real life cases help them to leap into, now I understand the acceptance phase is established.
Right.
And then the next thing is to, what can we do things differently? How can we make, things today better for tomorrow? So it's a continued learning process and try to really ingest the right thought in them. And I think previously I mentioned to you that we've embarked on the AI use case journey last year, last October, when I attended the InsurTech in Vegas, and almost every single booth has AI, and I was absolutely overwhelmed and inundated with a lot of the sales calls, and I was confused, and it's like, if AI is that good, there would be one package that fit all to solve all our problems. When I sort of dissect everything that's out there in the market space, every AI tool solves one thing. And I thought, I got to do my homework, like I have done, years back when I first joined the company, is really getting our technical use case down, right? Because AI requires good foundation. So building the data foundation was on my roadmap last January, onboarded and new a Pentaho, I'll do a plug for them, which is really a whole data integration, data warehouse, data analytic, everything in one platform. So it allows me to identify the source system, the different transformation, business rules, etc. So through the whole sort of the implementation phase, I was able to put out the right data foundation and creating the right data model and having the right agility to change. So I would say data foundation is number one to having really ability, or at least the prerequisites to explore AI technology, because AI is so versatile. It moves so fast. If you don't understand your business rules, the what if scenario, and also where your most of your business revenue, there's a lot of, I would say, the financial aspect you need to understand, especially in this insurance industry. There's a lot of sort of external costs and external business climate that will impact our forecast. So I would spend time building the right use cases. So number one, rating aid engine, right? The pricing, the premium pricing, because there's so many different variables that would impact the pricing. And time to market is important. If a client requests a quote, um, I want a quote yesterday. I don't
Right.
want to wait. If you're waiting on something else, and I'm going to shop around, right?
Hmm.
So the accurate and complete compilation of the data preventing process that enable us to get to the right carrier with a reasonable quote and come back to the client and present them the quote. The whole churn, you want to minimize it. So our SLA, or at least our best practice SLA, is within 2 business days. And
Okay.
that is really, really aggressive. with the right data, with the right, transferring or transposing the tribal knowledge into digital platform, at least capturing, having historical data, really help all of us make the right decision because having so many carriers out there, different risk appetite, and there's a different portfolio, and instantaneous, you cannot say, oh, let's send this to A, B, and C. You need to understand, with all the scoring of the quote sheet, where the client fall in, the type of goods they're hauling, the radius, their safety score, their DOT experience. There's so many different variables. If I have the ability to really come up with a good score and have high confidence that these two carriers will give me the best pricing, that more power to us, because then we would be in the forefront of the whole pack at presenting the reasonable quote to our client. So the conversion rate's higher. And so building these technical use cases really allow me to understand all the different business rules because when you make a decision, you have to have something to help you make the decision. So I kind of
Yeah.
reverse engineering, try to understand the different ingredients, the algorithm. So in the end, it is a decision tree. When you put anything on anywhere in your whole ecosystem, in the end, you need to make a decision, right?
Right, and so
So
you have
how
to have the pathways to really guide you there, and decision trees can be so impactful when it comes to AI because as you mentioned, you can be inundated with different tools and various use cases. Unless you fully understand the systems, then instead of implementing AI effectively, or you might be increasing your financial costs because you're implementing different tools that don't necessarily talk together or work with each other. And so I think your base coming in from ground zero and really understanding all of the systems first, and then the way you implemented all of the tools does give you the right framework for the next step in terms of AI utilization, how you want to move forward with that. Are there specific cases as you look to 2026 where you see AI being transformative for the company?
That's a very good question, right? So when I have my one-on-one with my team and also management meeting every quarter, I always say, AI is here to stay. In order to make it yourself more relevant, you need to make sure you use AI throughout your work journey, even in personal and work. But at work, when you come in, you want to think, oh, okay, where can, I know ChatGPT has been our best friend for a long time
Right.
certain aspect of usage today, it's really only the tip of the iceberg, right? So, through our quarterly conversations or one-on-one, I would be, I would be in the position to understand or try to understand our team's desire to learn about AI, especially insurance. Go back to the statement I made earlier. Like every other industry, insurance is such I would say it carries some technical debt, if you will. The culture itself, when people mention insurance, then people would imagine, oh my God, those people are so conservative. They're very rigid. They don't want to change. And, they won't get me something until I, finish A through Z. And so I think I would say the misconception of the industry itself, you need to make sure your team, your staff, and your vendor, your carrier, your partners have the same transformative thought process that would write the journey with you as well. So far, I think everyone in the company understand how to use ChatGPT to help them facilitate answering email, coming up with certain analysis that help them better negotiate or facilitate their day to day. So I think as of now, I think they're using it to the best of their ability where it makes sense. In 2026, I do foresee, elevating the next level as now they understand how things function, right? So the interface between the carriers, the NGAs, the TPAs. So I want my team to start thinking branching out, right? So if they were to come up with a prediction or projection for claims, and when we do our actuary study, I refresh it every 6 to 9 months. So at the longest is every year is the annual refresh of actuary study. And actuary study is nothing more than just kind of capturing what your firm's loss ratio is overall or on average, right? So there's different aggregation, different buckets, different elements. So if I were to unpeel the onion, I had to understand what actually study and what, income and input data, what the calculation, and there's so many different market factors that would, I would say, dilute our loss ratios. The more concrete factual data you have of our company, 3-year running, 5-year running, the more the better. Right. However, that's not enough. I think in 2026, I will look into other, which I already started a conversation with, is a third party data. Right. So third party data is very likely as a very correct reflection of how the market economy is doing, especially in the industry field, right? So there's logistic, consumer purchasing power, gross, domestic product, the tariff, the whole global economy. There's so many different elements that impact the underlying consumer. If I were to bring everything back to at the personal level, to predict, okay, would commercial trucking be better or worse in 2026? No one has that crystal ball, right? I would say at a personal level, if I have invest wisely, if I can save enough or really allocate my monthly budget properly, I'm willing to spend a little beyond what I need, right? So if you're looking at one household as an entity, my budget is $1,000, for example, for food, some, birthday gift, things like
Yeah.
1,000 as your sort of the simplest spending budget.
Electricity and
Exactly. Yeah. Not so much 1,000, let's say, of a household, $1,000 for me to use, dining out, um,
okay.
maybe a nice pair of jeans, things like that. So
Okay.
1,000.
So above and beyond what you have to spend, but you have $1,000 for food, some
Exactly.
other
Yeah.
items. Got
Leisure,
it. Okay,
or,
leisure.
apart from the rent and the utility, the fixed cost I had to spend. So $1,000, excluding investment and everything. So I have this $1,000. So if I have, allocate maybe $400 eating out, I'm supporting the local restaurants, right? Supporting a
Hmm.
local restaurant that people are willing to, I mean, they would be working additional shift to support people dining in, the utility, the produce, and, the whole ecosystem of consumer purchasing desire and the frequency and the intensity. I think that would transcend into more of, okay, am I going to see the inventory shifting? Are they going to stock more on these products in Walmart? That would drive the trucks, taking the goods, hauling the goods from A to B,
Okay.
interstate, cross state. So that's how I kind of correlate. So far, the October job market, the job report just came out. It's like they only added 64,000 jobs, but they lost, not counting the farming industry, they lost 105,000. So that does not look
So that
good,
doesn't
right? So
right.
I think if I were to really continue to build the AI roadmap, I would definitely tap into a lot of the different external third party data sources to help me augment and solidify my data model to
Okay.
continue building the use cases for AI.
Right. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I'd like to touch on how you're giving back in the last third of your career perhaps, but before we get there, I I do want to discuss the sense of empathy in your leadership, and empathy and technology aren't always correlated or aren't often correlated. Do you have an example of one time where leading with empathy or using empathy impacted your technology, the benefits of technology for you or the company?
Sure, sure. So historically in the technology field, people often see the leadership as very cutthroat and very on point and cutthroat. And, I think it's just the nature of the roles and responsibility. They always want to make sure that they're leading the parade, right? So when I started entering to the program or project management field, I had so much to learn because it's all about negotiation. So, in the I would say the Scrum versus the typical traditional project management culture, I think the flexibility of handling certain tasks or looking at the due dates of certain things. Scrum is less forgiving than the traditional project management world. So what I learned was, a few times, a different project, I was a scrum. I was placed in different capacities throughout the whole career during the PM role. So I would say, as an individual contributor, someone would need to be very honest about coming up with a Fibonacci point or the time to take the completed task. So honesty, transparency, and always make sure that you book a certain time. And coming back as the Scrum Master, we want to manage feature release or project or task. You want to make sure that you ask the right question. And, people say, if you're late for one sprint, it's not the end of the world. We can always reprioritize. So I think when I have my stand up and, facilitate certain Scrum meetings, I think my tone was, I think people understand I have a very mild tone. And when we went through the task list and, what's been done, what's pending, and things like that, the soft skill that I've learned and continue to learn really come into play because the tone that you use really help people to, I think when a task is late, the first thing people will do is because of this, because of that. So the first thing they come up with excuses, right? I often try not to. I try to deflect that sort of the mindset and say, because of the major release, it was delayed and therefore it's a snowball effect. So I would do my homework before I conduct those stand up meetings. So leading it with empathy, you can actually apply in various capacity, even a one-on-one conversation, right? So when we prepare the agenda, it's not really set in stone, right? So in the past, and plus, during the tenure I'm here, when you have one-on-one with the staff, and those are the quality time that you spend with them. And I often start with, how are you doing? How are you
Yeah.
doing? Right? So
Right.
even if I have a script, at the end, I want to, better their skill and maybe improve on their communication skill, leadership skill. That's my end goal. But what I normally start is, the work itself is cyclical. You have good days and bad days. And, when you come in, people will try to put the best forward. In the end, I would say I want you to be as vulnerable as you can be and be yourself. And I want to make sure you feel comfortable talking to me. So on my agenda, day one, I started, how are you doing? So that's the opening line. So that's one example of really on individual level, how you would exercise your empathy, right?
Yeah.
So there are different I would say different spectrum that you can apply. At the higher leadership level, the empathy comes in when you have to make a big decision on either a purchase, hiring someone on board, anything that would impact the company or a team very materially, empathy would be used in a very different fashion, right? So I think one thing I learned is if you need to make a strategic decision, I try to influence the team with a decision leaning towards one way or the other. You have to come up with a plan, a delivery plan, communication plan, start from the top and all the way down to the bottom where you would create a branch for folks to understand path option A, pros and cons, path option B, pros and cons. And you want to anticipate the question they would ask and truly understand the human part of it. And I don't expect you to work 10 hours a day to meet the deadline, first and foremost. I know we all have families, right? So I think the high level conversation really help everyone in the decision making group to set the right tone that don't kill yourself, right? And failure, get us more stronger and resilient and lessons learned. Sometimes I kind of want to hear where they fail it's the
Mm.
start of my conversation. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, and I want to understand. During we have a production capacity dashboard that I review with everyone on one-on-one. And if there's a dip or anything that I detect a pattern, I typically say, what happened there? I like to understand my thought, my goals to help you, right? Help you to help me and to help the team. So that's another example of empathy. I do see that the cultural shift in our workforce now, exiting pandemic, there was one period that people are a lot more empathetic, based on the
It's true.
conversations and posts that I saw on LinkedIn. But sadly, the last 18 months or so, I've seen some really negative energy being spread on a lot of the posts. It's simply because the economy is not doing well. And that is truly a great test. When things are going well, of course, everyone is in the happy path and a good state, everything is possible. But when you're in the trenches, when you're in a very struggling, challenging times, those are the times that truly will be testing your leadership, culture, leadership skills, and leadership direction.
Right.
I would say that right now we're in that most challenging time. Year end, either you go out and celebrate or you get your pink slip. So, I see a lot of mixed emotions out there. So you try to stay positive. And I have posed this question to a lot of my partners and carriers and MGA say, what do you think? How do you see 2026 compared to 2025? Is it worse? Is it better? And everyone is so hesitant to answer my question. I say, well, micro level, I gave an example as individual household spending. Micro level, no one could put a finger on anything. So I think the vulnerability, the fear, the uncertainty, now you need good leadership with empathy more than it.
Right. I would agree with I think leadership with empathy is always key, but you're correct that when the environment is more tense or a touch more negative, that really it shines through even better when a leader has empathy. And it seems that like a through line for you has been to dampen any defensiveness when someone's coming to you, because with defensiveness there can't be growth and a lot of change. And then it's interesting because we started our conversation talking about you mapping out just the technology space of the company and where the company was. But it seems like when you're looking at human interaction too, you're talk about decision trees and kind of understanding where the conversation can go and how to react if it goes down A or path B. Uh, and in coming to those above you and those below you with an understanding of where they're sitting, really. And
Exactly. Yeah.
it's
So I used
admirable.
right, right. I used the three P's when I first started the TTMO roles and responsibility, the people, process, and platform. People's always first, always. So when anytime when you do day zero discovery, when I do any type of a business requirement gathering, those three P's or three pillars help me really drive the direction. It never ends.
And talking about people, I think this is a great moment to dive into what you're looking for next in your career and how you're thinking about giving back.
Sure, sure. I think giving back concept started a while back. I think during pandemic, it's even more heightened. I've been on a nonprofit board for more than 5 years now. I think giving back comes with different forms and shapes. I donate all the time. I volunteer as I am able to. I also try to convince or at least advocate the giving back concept to my family too. My husband is now retired, so I would look into like Tri-City Food Bank or any other nonprofit. I signed up for hours for them. I'll say, you're not playing golf, you're not working out, can I get some time from you to volunteer for 2 hours? And, it's like one simple conversation to kind of start thinking, okay, I have 8 hours. It's important to give back because, a lot of times people think at the end of their career journey, they would think, oh, how I'm going to enjoy my retirement. But part of retirement is back is the timetable. So he's more willing to accept now. My girls, volunteer because of the requirements. So I think it's hard for them to change. Oh, okay, I'd rather go shopping or whatever the case might be. And I said, well, high school require at least 100 hours of volunteering. So I think slowly but surely that's a part of their DNA now. Like whenever they have time, they would volunteer. I know my older one is almost done with dental school, and the last 2 years she's volunteered a lot of skip rope clinic. different
Okay.
externships in the clinics that in the less fortunate area or less developed areas. She went to Peru and volunteered for a whole month, and really seeing, people had no dental care. Like dental care is the last thing on their list. So I mean, just as an example, for me, it's I work full time. I take care of my family. Anytime I have time, I would volunteer. And the board position allowed me to have great exposure in my city, my local community. So I volunteer in different capacity, and especially during certain milestone or certain holiday like Thanksgiving and Christmas. I also belong to church too, so I volunteer there too. Any chance, any opportunity in your network, in your sort of the day to day, fit something in where you feel comfortable. Make sure that you don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going out of my way to volunteer. That should not be the mindset. That should be, I like to volunteer. Let me make time for it.
Right.
So that
It does come back to leadership in some ways because as you're volunteering and you're giving back, you're seeing the world from a different person's point of view in the different
absolutely,
scenarios that you're putting
it
yourself in.
humbles you big time, big time.
That's great. I love that that's such a focal point as your husband's retired and you're nearing or you're looking at what might be next for you, that it's become a really important part of your life and you're at the end of your career. As we close up for our listeners, we talk about AI and leadership a lot. And sometimes, as I mentioned in the beginning, it can be hype and buzzwords, which leads to a big feeling of overwhelm. When you think about the concept of AI, what would you say to our listener that is completely overwhelmed about AI, about what's a baby step they could take to start understanding a little bit more what the capabilities are?
Absolutely. Another great questions. I would uh, rewound myself 2 years ago when I first attended the conference, and there's AI on every single booth. And when I came back, I was like, I actually sit in my office for a good half an hour and say, okay, I need to provide a report. What I learned, what I took away, right? So, and AI is everywhere. Where am I going to say? How am I going to predict AI will help us, the insurance underwriting and operation? I would say overwhelming is a very natural reaction, and you should feel that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with feeling that. The next step would be, let me put as an example as a funnel, right? So when I feel overwhelmed at the top of the funnel, I would say take a pause, take a deep breath. And what I've done since then was to really, you know, helicopter down to my ground level and really start documenting it, start visualizing it. I know ChatGPT was finally used 2 years ago or starting to people. So I would say, oh, besides that, we're Google shop. We can look into Gemini and help us maybe, summarize my dialogue and see what the best responses are. And that's just one example. But coming to the IT roadmap, what I've done was really spend 3 to 6 months gathering all the requirements. So all those artifacts come in handy now. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of, dissect each module and look at, every single process, every connector and say, this tool, AI can help with this. And so inventory all the AI tools out there. There's different tools to help you with different categories and then the features and solutions that you want to implement. I would say start with that matrix.
Right.
Different AI tools out there, put them in different buckets, right? So LinkedIn, every second there's an AI artifact pop up in you. Okay, to me it's just another colorful artifact. I don't know how to use it. They say the same thing. So don't get intimidated. I would say start within, start with yourself, start with your own company, right? Own team, own group. Look at everything as is. I know this is a very typical term, as is, environment, as
Hmm.
is people and a process and system. And look at all these artifacts and try to, again, elevate yourself up, say, what are some of the key problems that I try to solve? This is the phase two of the same question. So now you would have the AI lens looking into it, not just technology, but AI, right? So I saw a few demos that really showcasing, the OCR technology, import data with 2 pieces of PDF or different types of documentation. And in front of you, it took less than a minute. It spits out a whole data attribute in front of me, from a PDF to really a physical data point. Also compared to me document A and document B, and the delta did not take me much time, and it didn't require me a heavy technical skill set. So, as an example, because we get quote sheets all the time, we get quick quotes back, indications. There's a lot of paper churn, a lot of paper activity, movement. In the end, we want to make sure that we seal the deal. So, how do I get to this busy work? This busy engine turning document, trying to understand and interpret, to a working quote that I could present to the client, and the ability to answer, okay, why is it $1,000 more? Because of the comparison capability, I'm able to tell him that, oh, it's because of your deductible or towing limitation or anything fine print that I'm able to substantiate or justify the quote. So things like that. I would
Right.
say do not get intimidated. It's very natural feeling. That's how I was 2 years ago. But leaping from that, me to here today, I have a lot more confidence handling AI conversation, like the conversation I have humbly with you, Amanda. And I think always make yourself relevant and don't work under fear. I would say if you don't comfortable, it's a good thing. And
Right.
AI, absolutely uncomfortable 2 years ago. I was actually inundated. But it took me 2 years to realize, AI has another decade of evolution and transformation. I better be in the parade, not leading. So that's my thought process. And that's
Yeah.
a feedback I would provide to your audience. If someone that's really, scared of knowing AI and not knowing what to do with it, start small. Start a use case that is relevant to you, your team, that you like to see improvement or a more optimal, more efficient.
I love that. I love that you say it's okay to feel the overwhelm. We are being inundated with a lot of information, and there is quite a few different matrices that exist out there of what buckets you can put different tools in and start small. It's okay to be overwhelmed. Take the deep breath. I love you introduced that too. So take the deep breath and start small. I appreciate all of your time that you spent with us today and all of the insight that you gave us. Thank you for joining the podcast, and we look forward to talking to you soon. If people do want to reach out to you, Teresa, what's the best way that they can find you and connect?
Absolutely. Love to connect with folks and share similar sentiment. I'll share with you my LinkedIn profile, so
Okay.
you can put that under your conversation or feed, and people can reach me that way. That's the best way to reach me.
All right, that's great. We will have show notes attached to the episode, and we'll put in the link to Teresa's LinkedIn as well. Thank you.
Wonderful.